Charlie Tyrrell's documentary of My Dead Dad's Porno Tapes is a true story based around the death of Charlie's father, Greg, who was considered a modest hoarder. Charlie discovered several of his significant objects, unfolding the truth about his death and how it affected his relationship between him and his family. This award-winning documentary is best categorized as part of the expository mode, as Tyrrell incorporated techniques such as interviews, live home footage, photographs, titles, narrations, time discontinuity, and evidentiary editing. With a didactic approach, the film reveals the truth behind Greg's childhood through an extremely distinctive style involving stop motion and animation. The expository mode of documentary making was inspired by the revolutionary films of Soviet makers, including Votev and Sergei Eisenstein. Grierson sought to infuse that documentary with the poetry of everyday life, a more realistic approach that would elevate the film above the standard non-fiction fare of travelogues and newsreels. Therefore, the content of this mode is created to gain its viewer through an emotional connection as well as intellectual. This documentary adopts the voice of God narration technique to convey the film's perspective from a single unifying source that facilitates comprehension of the content. The narrator tells the story through a third-person perspective in an expressive and intelligent manner. The narrator recites the story of Greg Tyrrell, the subject of the film, and taking the viewer on an emotional journey through the significant parts of his life. The intended hidden message of the film is developed as they discover more about Greg through his possessions, proposing that you don't really know someone without knowing all the evidence. The time and space in the film is discontinuous, influenced by the discoveries of Greg's singular objects, inviting the story to flash back to vital moments in time when the item was used. The flashbacks are in the form of live home footage and photographs from the past to support the topic. Tyrrell used these sources to approximate some element of phenomenological experience of the event. As the story unfolds, the narrative presents the facts as to why he was the way he was. It suddenly reveals issues that occurred in Greg's childhood and demonstrates how they impacted the relationships between him and his family. An example of this is the cause of Greg's death. They know it was a tumor, which could have been one of three factors: drinking, smoking, or stress. They narrowed it down to stress and labelled the tumor Dale, referring to Greg's harsh mother as a result of too much stress when he was brought up. This invites the audience to feel a certain way about the character, as they depict his mother as a strict, cruel mother who ran her household like a ship. The interviews in this documentary are presented in a non-conventional way. Instead, an old photograph of the interviewee on a plain white background is viewed with subtitles in syncopation with voiceover of the interview. Evidentiary editing is used within this film to support the titles and voiceover as the story pans out. For example, when they are discussing the tools Greg had, the vocals are accompanied by live footage of Greg when he renovated the house. Evidentiary editing is also used in various of Tyrrell's other works, such as Broken Orchestra and I Thought I Told You to Shut Up. The style of this film differs from the conventional expository form of documentary, as there is hardly any shots in the present time. Instead, stop motion and 2D animation is used to illustrate the story through a more creative approach. The use of stop motion and live footage is a common tactic found in Tyrrell's other works, including Hamburger and the Book of Dog. A stylistic choice is visual presentation of the film, almost implementing a scrapbook-like illustration as it provides memorabilia from Greg's past. It generates a crafty aesthetic whilst delivering the information in an innovative and imaginative form. One example of this stylistic approach is the interviews. Tyrrell has constructed these with a vintage photo of the interviewee on a plain white background, replicating the scrapbook paper, with subtitles directly underneath accompanied by the voiceover. To keep the viewer interested, Tyrrell has used 2D animation to assist in storytelling aspect. The discontinuity of time and space can also be seen in Tyrrell's other works, including Hamburger, which is a short film. Therefore, this technique is stylistic choice, but can also work towards making the documentary expository. Tyrrell's use of expository techniques created an extremely insightful sneak peek into his father's life. The highly stylized documentary shaped a powerful message and life lesson for both himself and the audience.